Well, Christ is risen. Today is a day of celebration, and it's true, we're grateful for spring and the flowers that are blooming in this, the greenest of cities. And each year we do sort of celebrate the arrival of spring with the Easter eggs and the bunnies, rabbits, and lots of flowers. But today we are celebrating life and new beginnings and starting fresh and starting over once again with that resurrection hope. We've come here today to celebrate resurrection, the affirmation that life overcomes death, that love prevails because God is love. We've come together today to celebrate and share this common story. This is a story of one day in the life of a small group of people 2,000 years ago, and yet it is our story as well. It's a story of hope, it's a story of loss and love, of trauma and renewed hope. Again, it's our story because it's God's story and because we can see ourselves and we can feel our feelings in this story. So we put ourselves there today. It's an early morning and a woman, Mary Magdalene, is in a garden. She's standing by the graveyard weeping. This is a woman who has already experienced enough pain in her life. When we meet her earlier in this story, when she first encounters Jesus, before she had been healed, we're told she had 7 demons, and we don't know what her symptoms were to receive that kind of a diagnosis. But it was a way of describing many forms of mental illness, of erratic behavior, or possibly epilepsy. But since in scriptures, the number 7 is the number of completion, it's telling us that her life was completely overcome and out of control. And in that condition, she has been pushed aside, and she's feared by others, and she's ostracized by her family and friends. And so finally, when her relationship with Jesus brings about her healing, she's given this brand new life. She's accepted into this community of followers who travel with Jesus, caring for one another, sharing meals as equals, learning each day about this loving God, learning from this loving teacher who creates this family out of people who would otherwise probably never speak to one another. Those disregarding class and status and race and gender. Following Jesus had brought her more joy than she could ever have imagined. And then within a matter of days, it is all taken away. For she was there in Jerusalem when he was arrested, and she watched all the friends scatter in fear, and she stood at the foot of the cross as she watched the one who had given her hope, her friend, her teacher, is nailed to a cross to die a horrible, painful death, executed as a criminal. How could life make sense ever again? So early in this morning, she has come as the sun is coming up to the tomb to say goodbye one last time, and her head is swimming with loss and confusion. And what she finds is an open grave. And now she's more confused, and she runs back to her chosen family, those who had been closest to Jesus, John and Peter, and she tells them what she assumed was true, that someone has taken her Lord from the tomb. And these 2 men run back, and all they see inside are some clothes, and they're confused. They believe something has happened, but they go home wondering what to make of it. And Mary stays. Trying to focus through her fears, she looks back inside one more time, and this time she sees 2 angelic figures sitting where the body had been, and she hears voices. "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she stumbles out and she sees Jesus standing there but doesn't recognize him. And it's not that he looked different, but we tend to see what we expect. And she couldn't have expected this. She had seen him die. When we're expecting death, it's hard to see life. When our hearts have fallen into that deep well of depression, it is difficult, so difficult to see signs of hope, even when they are right in front of us. So thinking that he is a gardener, she pleads through her tears, if you have taken him, tell me, and I'll take him away. The shock has set Mary's nervous system into overdrive, and she's searching for ways to make sense of what is happening and searching amidst her grief. And she's breathing shallow breaths and probably sweating as she's scanning this environment. What has happened? What have you done? In her desperation, she's immediately accusatory towards the stranger, and something else we can relate to as well. We too tend to rush to conclusion about people and their character and their identity just to help us make sense of our experience, especially when we're desperate. But finally, Jesus speaks her name, Mary, and in that moment, she is known and she knows who he is. Now, she must have reached out to embrace him, for the next thing he says is, do not hold on to me. Instead, go to my brothers, tell them I am ascending to the Father, your Father, to my God and your God. Once he calls out to her, she recognizes him, hearing her name and his voice. This is an intimate exchange. And Christ says those words that were heard through the centuries of Christianity, noli me tangere in Latin. Megan Watterson suggests that this noli me tangere is Christ's reminder to Mary that there's no need to reach for this physical form, for he is not outside just appearing before her in the garden. He is still where he has always been and will never leave, which is inside the walls of her heart. She is his first witness, not by accident. According to all of the Gospels, Mary Magdalene was present at the crucifixion. She was there at the burial. She was there at the empty tomb. She is the first person to witness resurrection. And Christ gives Mary Magdalene special instructions and commissions her to be the one to announce the good news. So Mary's status as the apostle to the apostles comes from this moment when she is the one who is sent by Christ to tell all the other disciples that he has been resurrected. Centuries of Christian history trying to remove the women from the story have failed in the Gospel of John. She realizes now that the divine has entered her world. But this is our story, so more than that has happened here, because not only her world, but our world has been changed. John's gospel wants us to know a shift has happened. This story that started with the words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," is now ending with a new beginning. Mary will find her friends and proclaim this beginning for them and for us and for creation. This is a fresh start for all of humankind in caring for God's children and for God's creation. For the good news of this day is that Jesus, on this first Easter morning, came to usher in a new, redeemed creation, showing that death has been overcome and that love is stronger than fear. The story of resurrection is about healing the world. On this day, the power of God's love for humanity proves stronger than our capacity to hate and destroy or to kill. Jesus' crucifixion, that was about the power of violence. That was about the threat of death. But the resurrection is a sign of peace and compassion and renewal and God's promise of life. The resurrection of Jesus is a sign pointing to us of God's new creation that is coming in its completion in the future, but is already working in the world. Already in the world, wherever and whenever people seek peace over violence and love over hate. This resurrection validated everything that Jesus taught. The claim that the kingdom of God, this realm of compassion and justice and joyful new life, is already here in our midst. We hold on to that hope that just as God has restored new life to Jesus, so God will destroy and bring together and restore all that has been destroyed, bringing new life to creation. For those who continue to follow Jesus, the implications of this resurrection would include shattering of old social boundaries as they came to understand that Christ is Lord of all and no one is excluded from God's love. So what does that mean for us? It means when the news of pain and death is more than we can take in, whenever the powerful and the violent seem to be winning, we know that there is hope. We know that there is another way. Kathy Escobar suggests that we need to maybe try using the verb form of resurrection, resurrecting. Synonyms for resurrecting include awakening and breathing life into and coming to life and making whole and overcoming and recovering and rekindling and renewing and renovating and restoring, strengthening and reawakening and waking up. Resurrecting, it's a verb, it's active, it's ongoing, it's not just a one-time event. It's a way of living, the way of living that God invites us into. So what is awakening in you? What relationships are being rekindled? How are you opening your life to new possibilities now? How might God be inviting you to share this resurrection hope with those who are still caught up in fear and anxiety? We come every year, this time of year, to this same story, because hearing this story gives all of our stories hope. The resurrection not only gives us personal hope for acceptance and forgiveness and unconditional love no matter what, but it also gives us strength to work with others around the world against unjust systems, gives us the passion to speak the truth of God's love for all of creation. This story gives us hope that although the world may be filled with difficulty and despair and death, renewal is already happening. Like the flowers blooming out of the cold, dark soil, the seed of divine love is planted in the ground, and God is always bringing new life into our world. So it is Easter, and you are loved. In an inconceivable, irrevocable way, the God who created all of us loves you. And fear is overcome, and death has lost its sting and its power to keep you from your life of renewal and resurrecting. Christ is risen. Let us rejoice and let us sing.